Okay, good morning. It is Thursday, October 2nd. And if you woke up today feeling that familiar heavy sensation, you know the one, that national deja vu feeling before the coffee's even kicked in, well, you are definitely not alone. It's that feeling like you just watched a spectacular corporate car crash, help sweep up the bits, and then you see the driver casually test driving a newer model, only like in a totally different country.
Oh, it's more than a feeling, isn't it? It's practically policy at this point. What we saw yesterday, the whole cynical circus after Flyplay HF finally, predictably, imploded on Tuesday. That wasn't some tragedy.
No.
No, that was theater. A corporate seance pre-planned. They're trying to, reanimate the airline's ghost with a clean slate, a Maltese passport, and absolutely zero thought for the Icelandic staff who actually built the thing in the first place.
A corporate magic trick. Except the rabbit gets stiffed on severance pay. So our job this morning, really, is to do the brutally honest press review. We need to pick apart the real economic damage from this financial performance art that's playing out, dig into the messy guts before the PR machine spins it all into sunshine and rainbows.
Exactly. Welcome, everyone, to Bad Things Well Said Icelandic Newsroom. And hey, if you appreciate someone actually digging into the, let's call it the structural absurdity of the Icelandic story, please do hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, maybe tell a friend who also stares at the headlines in despair.
All right, let's get into this Flyplay resurrection, or maybe we should stick with the Phoenix Gambit. That feels about right. So the Icelandic parent company is officially bankrupt. Done. Filed yesterday in Reykjavik court. That part's clear. But the key move, the sneaky bit, was the bondholders grabbing the Maltese subsidiary Flyplay Europe, the clean shell.
That's the one. The clean shell. Designed specifically, you have to assume, to hold the good stuff, mainly those pandemic-era aircraft leases, keep them far away from the Icelandic debt, and crucially, the Icelandic staff contracts. It's textbook financial engineering, really. Asset preservation 101. Just move jurisdictions.
Okay, so they got the shell, the corporate chassis, if you like. But what did they forget? Where's the embarrassing flaw in this supposedly clever plan?
Well, the engine. Turns out the new shiny Maltese entity is currently an airline with no planes.
Wait, what? No planes?
Zero. See, the really fascinating legal twist here is that the bankruptcy of the Icelandic parent company, it seems it voided those exact sweetheart leasing contracts they wanted to save. The ones with AirCap and the others, the really valuable pandemic deals.
Hold on. So the bondholder seized the company that had the contracts, but the contracts themselves just poof, vanished when the parent company died.
Pretty much. They torched the old house, thinking they'd save the valuable, heavily subsidized foundation. Only to find out the foundation legally dissolved the second the roof caved in. So right now, today, they are scrambling, desperately trying to negotiate new leases, probably much more expensive ones, for 4 to 6 Airbus planes. Their whole comeback plan now depends on the goodwill of lessors who know, absolutely know, these guys are over a barrel. It's almost beautiful. Corporate blackmail flipped right back at them.
Oh, the irony is just delicious. They kill the company to dodge the debt and lose the very thing that made the new company worth anything. And this whole chaotic pivot, wasn't it just perfectly summed up by the now former chief operating officer of Play Europe, Halldór Guðfinnsson? Is that how you say it? Guðfinnsson?
Oh, Halldór, yes. The brief star of this whole drama. On Tuesday, he gives this unbelievably tone-deaf speech. Inspirational, apparently. Telling the remaining 80 Maltese staff that financing was totally secure. Practically bragging, wasn't he? Said something like, while his friends in Iceland were losing jobs, not me. I am one of, I think, 2 who still have a job. I mean, the sheer unadulterated hubris of it.
And then, boom, less than 24 hours later, yesterday, he resigns. The whiplash must have been intense. He told Vizier, I love this, that he had neither the knowledge nor the authority to say what he said about the financing, and admitted, quote, he went too far.
I went too far. That's the epitaph for Flyplay HF right there. His sudden exit. That's the market talking. It's the ultimate vote of no confidence. Even the insiders closest to the cockpit, if you will, seem to think this Phoenix Gambit is built on quicksand. They're jumping ship before those new expensive lease payments come due.
Right. Okay, so from that spectacular flashbang of corporate failure, let's segue, as we always seem to do, into the slow, grinding noise of national political boredom. Because, the smell of failure rarely stays contained out at Keflavik, does it?
No, it drifts inland, settles over Helsinki like a damp fog that just won't lift. And the latest Hojor pulls pull from Gallup for September. It just confirmed what we all feel in our bones. The whole country has a bad case of political fatigue. The electorate's completely fragmented. People are just lodging protest votes everywhere, cycling through different brands of disappointment.
Yeah, the numbers are just stagnant. A symphony of meh. Social Democrats still on top at 34%, but down a bit. Independence Party just sort of slowly deflating at 19.5%. There's no energy, no strong mandate for anyone. Just a collective national shrug.
And here's the really depressing part, the so-called good news. The biggest political win this month. The Progressive Party, that's Party B, crawled back over the 5% threshold. They're at 5.8%, up from 4.5%. That's the headline success story.
The Lazarus Party rises again. No longer clinically dead, merely on life support. And this is what passes for political excitement now. Celebrating a party achieving the bare minimum for survival, while the left Greens, the pirates, the socialists, they're all just languishing down there in the wilderness below the line. It really makes you wonder, are we just picking whichever party smells slightly less stale this week?
It really suggests the system isn't about choosing a vision you like anymore. It's more about tactical voting against whoever you dislike most, like being offered 3 different kinds of stale crackers for breakfast and having to pick one.
Exactly. Okay, let's pivot from political indifference to, well, to where that indifference manifests in some truly weird domestic situations, where that famous Icelandic resilience starts looking a bit like, well, like collective denial.
You must be talking about Grindavík. The town literally built on shifting ground, still trying to, plan landscaping. I saw those urban planning ideas. Please tell me you're kidding about the children's playground right next to the giant fissure.
I wish I was. Nope. The plans apparently include a new information area and a kid's playground right next to the sports hall, which, as everyone knows, is split right down the middle by the Stempole's Jaw fissure. What is it? 3 meters wide. 30 meters deep. It's like the ultimate piece of geological dark humor. Come on, kids, swings are over here. Just mind the gaping chasm leading to the Earth's molten core.
It's magnificent in a terrifying way.
Yeah.
It's either proof of incredible human stubbornness or just sheer collective insanity. I can't decide. And speaking of insanity, look at the disconnect. The gap between government ambition and government execution.
Ah, yes, the lofty versus the mundane. The perfect metaphor for Icelandic governance, isn't it?
Absolutely. On one hand, Iceland's out there, proudly puffing its chest, announcing updated, super ambitious climate goals for the Paris Agreement. Big, abstract 2035 targets. Makes us look great internationally, saving the planet, easy peasy.
And on the exact same day, Rauhi reports that the project, the very basic project, to get continuous mobile phone signal on all main roads, delayed. Again, pushed back to the end of 2028. Why? Ran out of money. Oh, and coverage in the Highlands, forget it. Scrapped entirely. So we can save the planet by 2035, but we can't guarantee you can call for a tow truck if your car breaks down on the ring road until maybe 2029.
Grand pronouncements are free, right? Reliable infrastructure, that actually costs money. It sums up perfectly where the real political effort goes, or doesn't go.
And this whole problem of priorities, it feeds right into that structural issue laid bare by the ASE and BSRB survey, the immigrant paradox. These findings are pretty damning, aren't they?
They really are. The survey shows immigrants in Iceland have higher employment rates than native Icelanders, and they're more likely to have a university education. So highly skilled, highly motivated workforce.
Consistently lower income. And housing, forget about it. Housing precarity is severe. Only 25% of immigrants own their home. Compare that to 77% of natives. That gap, that 52-point gap, that's not an accident, is it?
Doesn't look like it. It strongly suggests the Icelandic economic model, which demands high skills, demands high work participation, is basically set up to exploit those skills. But without giving back the equivalent financial reward or security, we import educated talent and effectively pay them with low purchasing power and perpetual renting. Rent slavery, essentially.
It's a system that maximizes profit extraction by minimizing the financial stability of a really critical part of the workforce. And if you zoom out, connect this back to the bigger picture, it makes you ask some uncomfortable questions, like whose power, whose entrenched interests does this whole system actually protect?
Indeed. That's the quiet machinery of power, isn't it? Ticking away perfectly, just beneath the noisy headlines.
Right. Let's quickly look abroad, where Icelanders seem to have a knack for wandering into rather high-stakes global situations. We've got the activist musician Margaret Kristen Blundell, Magostina,
yeah. Currently on board the ship Conscience, part of the Gaza Freedom Flotilla, trying to break the naval blockade. And that situation escalated quite a bit yesterday. Israeli interceptions, arrests. Greta Thunberg was reportedly among those detained. Suddenly, a distant conflict Feels very close to home.
And the Iceland-Palestine Association, in a move that was, well, charmingly optimistic, let's say, called for the Icelandic Coast Guard to provide an escort, which is, maybe slightly less feasible than asking the newly bankrupt Play Air to lend them a plane for the trip.
It shows the passion, absolutely. The idealism, but maybe also highlights the disconnect with Iceland's actual clout on the world stage, and contrast that high-stakes drama with the, frankly, farcical way other global politics touches us. Case in point, the U.S. government shutdown.
Yes. The primary impact here of the superpower implosion. A quiet day on Facebook. Because the U.S. Embassy in Reykjavik posted a notice saying their account wouldn't be updated much, except for emergencies. Why? Lapse in appropriations.
The Great American Democratic Crisis. Reduced to his social media scheduling problem in Reykjavik. It's like watching a giant fall over in slow motion because its phone ran out of battery.
Beautifully put. Okay, hard pivot now to the national obsession, sport, where even selling tickets becomes a sign of, well, something. Football megalomania seems to be running wild.
Absolutely. Tickets for the World Cup qualifiers, Ukraine and France, vanished instantly. Coach Arnar Gunnlaugsson hit the nail on the head. Megalomania in the nation, he called it. And he seems determined to bring a new ruthlessness to match it.
Oh, he does. He recalled Aaron Einar Gunnarsson, the old warrior. But then, in a move that sends shivers down your spine, he excluded Johan Berg Guðmundsson, a veteran with 99 caps. And when the press asked how he broke the news to this legend, Arnar Gunnlaugsson just gave this ice-cold reply, I didn't notify him.
Wow. Wow. The absolute death of sentimentality and the quest for glory. You almost have to admire the brutal corporate efficiency of it. Results over feelings, no time for long goodbyes.
And yet, while all that drama unfolds, we barely notice the quiet competence happening elsewhere. The Tindastal men's basketball team. They went to Slovakia, played Slovan Bratislava in the EMBL League, and secured a really dominant win, 80-56. A solid, tangible victory abroad. It's maybe a footnote compared to a Facebook post from the U.S. Embassy. Priorities, eh?
And finally, speaking of global events felt locally, we saw the world mourning Dr. Jane Goodall yesterday, passed away at 91. A true giant.
And the immediate Ruve reaction, typical Icelandic reflex. Focus instantly on her visit here back in June 2016 to Haskalabio and immediately re-aired the interview they did with her 9 years ago. We take this incredible global figure, and the first question is, how does this relate to us? How did it touch our little island? It's the ultimate localization instinct. If it didn't happen here or involve us somehow, did it really happen?
Okay, let's wrap this. This catalog of corporate collapses, political stagnation, and playground planning absurdities, with the one constant, the weather. Because through it all, the bankruptcies, the polling slumps, the fissure-adjacent recreation areas, the damp southern air just keeps rolling in. Let's call it today's perfect meteorological metaphor.
Right. So for today, Thursday, October 2nd, the forecast is predictably damp. That low-pressure system is still pushing moist southern air our way. Expect south and southwest winds, gentle enough, maybe 3 to 10 meters per second, bringing scattered showers, intermittent rain, mostly in the south and west. Reykjavik temperatures, a thrilling 6 to 11 degrees Celsius.
So mostly damp, mostly gray, mostly underwhelming. But naturally, there has to be an exception. The Northeast, they get inexplicable sunshine. Temperatures climbing up to a positively tropical 14 degrees Celsius, just to mock the rest of us stuck in the damp gloom, dealing with the actual economic fallout.
So the advice is, dress for structural disappointment maybe, but pack sunglasses just in case you happen to live in that one smug, sunny corner of the country.
All right, so as you head out into that gray wind this morning, here's a final thought, something to chew on. Connecting that whole play collapse, the political meh, and that immigrant paradox we talked about.
Go on.
Does Iceland, maybe culturally, prefer the big, loud failures, the spectacular flameouts like an airline collapsing, the volcanic eruptions, the corporate fireworks displays?
That's supposed to.
As opposed to looking too closely at the quiet stuff. The almost invisible consolidation of real entrenched power, like the structural exploitation of immigrant workers we just discussed, the way generational wealth just keeps accumulating in the same hands, the fact that only a quarter of that vital, educated workforce can even dream of owning a home.
So the question is, do we need the noise? Do we need the spectacle of the crash to distract ourselves? To keep us from seeing who's quietly rearranging the foundations of the economy to suit themselves?
Yeah. That's the real question, isn't it? A cheerful thought for your Thursday morning coffee. Thanks for tuning into this edition of Bad things well said Icelandic newsroom.
Indeed. And if our particular flavor of cynical commentary helped you make sense of the madness, or maybe just feel slightly less alone in finding it all absurd, please do subscribe, share the episode, tell a friend. You know the drill. Hit that button.
We will be back tomorrow morning, inevitably, ready to pick apart whatever fresh hell yesterday's news cycle decides to cough up next. Stay dry out there, and maybe just a little bit cynical.
Disclaimer. The voices in this podcast were generated by AI. However, all information, facts, claims, concepts, and the script itself were prepared, editorially reviewed, and are the original work of a human author.